Here I am representing the Trunic Informatics, and I am working as a data scientist with Trunic, and I also give the training in the industry. So let's start the session with how one person can start their journey to be a data scientist. So in this today's workshop, we are going to discuss about the introduction to data science. Then we will see what are the skills which is required to be a data scientist. And there is a one question which a lot of people have confusion, even though they are working in the data science industry. Some of them is like, what is the difference between exactly data science, AI, ML, and deep learning? And are these different things or they are exactly the same thing, just being used interchangeably? And then we will see what is the demand of data science currently in the market, and we will start working with the data science project as well in today's workshop. So first of all, we will see what is the workflow of data science, and then we will see one small case study, and after that we will see what are the coming workshop topics would be. And at the end we will see if you are going to attend these workshops seriously and going to get benefits. One definitely is through your learning, and what are the other things you can get through this workshop. And at the end we will talk about how you can pursue the data science career. So let's start it with the application. You guys might be having a Android mobile phone, or you might be having a Apple phone, right? So you might be using already Google Assistant. You might ask any query to them, and just by listening to you first, it find out what words you have spoken, and then try to find out the context out of that, and then give the results accordingly. And sometimes it communicates with you as well with its own voice. So what is everything behind is, we say data science, right? Data science or artificial intelligence, till now, till some moment, we will keep these same terms interchangeably. So we can say data science, AI, or deep learning at the same time. Similarly, recommendation systems or product recommendation, we can say. So you guys might be visiting the nowadays, specifically during this lockdown, you might be doing lots of shopping through online systems like Amazon, Flipkart, and many different cards are available. In these cards, you might be seeing that you might visit these website to buy one particular product, and at the same time it shows you lots of recommendations, the products which you can buy also. And these websites have around millions of products on their website, so they are not just going to give you some random recommendation. So there is a whole process behind that, which is decide they are trying to decide to give you the recommendation in such a way so that their profits can be maximized. Okay, there are few more peoples are entering in the workshop, so just let me make them enter. And okay, so there we were facing some technical issues actually. So let's start. I would like to request Dr. Bharat sir to start the session, and then we will go and talk some technical stuff. So I request Bharat sir. So I'm making Bharat sir as a host.
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah,
Yes, sir,
is it audible?
please. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, on behalf of Vainganga College of Engineering and Management, I welcome Mr. Gaurav Sharma from Trunix Technologies. which is a software development company, and Gaurav has been almost having a 10-year experience in the field of software development, and he just started a career long back as a lecturer in the college, and now he is a software developer in the field of data sciences, and a lot of work he has been doing in the field of stock management. Then all the company which require a data engineering, he's working on that, and he successfully completed number of projects. So today he will be with us and have a great day for the seminar, which will be introducing the ifs and buts of what data sciences is. So I would like to convey all the participants to take interest in the topic called a data science, as we are starting the new engineering branch this year in our college, that is data sciences. And so it will be very useful for all the faculty members who will be teaching the subject, as well as the student who want to go for the different aspect of artificial intelligence and data sciences. Because data science is one of the most emerging technologies nowadays. In future, the technology will depend upon the data only. So I will request Mr. Gaurav to please continue. Okay, thank you. Gaurav, yeah, hello.
Yes, thank you very much, sir. S-
Yeah, Gaurav, continue, please.
Thank you, sir. And let's start the session now. So few more people have joined just now actually. So let me add them. Okay. So we have been discussing about the applications. And before starting the application, I would also request the Amita ma'am to say few words. So let me make Amita ma'am as a host. So Amita ma'am, can you please speak few words? I think there are some technical issues again, so we should start the we will start the topic, and then later on we will again try to connect with Amita ma'am. Okay, so we have been discussing about some of the application in the today's world, right? So we discuss like the companies like Amazon and Flipkart and other online cart, they are making huge amount of money because they are able to produce the correct recommendations. Similarly, on the Facebook or on the LinkedIn, you might be getting also some of the recommendation of the friends, right? So these could be your friends, right? So one of the topic even which will be coming in the coming workshop is how you can recommend the friends on the basis of the Facebook links. Similarly, there are lots of other places it is being used. So let me ask you guys this question: have you ever heard about the Terminator movie, right? So it is showing the artificial intelligence stuff only, but definitely artificial intelligence is nowhere near that advanced currently, right? But one day there is also possibility that we will become AI slaves. But again, that's a rabbit hole actually, which meant for another discussion. So we can't say how it would go, but this is one of the limit we can talk, that it might happen that the machines can become that much intelligent that we may become their slave as well. It's also the possibility. Okay, so let's start with the definition of data science. So on a very basic level, if we have to talk about the data science, then it is computer science. It's a combination of computer science, math, and statistics. So we say actually they all together is get ready to married, and then they have the baby, and that baby is called as the data science. So data science is just not one particular subject. It's the combination of many subjects actually, or many disciplines. And also one person has to be good in all of these subjects, only then he can become a very good data scientist. So there is a one more definition for a data scientist that says a data scientist is a good statistician, is a better statistician than the programmer, and he is a better programmer than the statistician, right? So somewhere he requires the knowledge of both of these fields, specifically programming and statistics. These are two important fields, but it's not just complete here. There are lots of other things which are very important for from the point of view of data science. So let's see, if we see from the technical point of view, that what are the things which we do in the data science. So first of all, you collect the data, that is specifically large arrays of structured or unstructured data. So structured means the data can be in the form of simple tabular form, or it might be unstructured, means it might be completely paragraphs, like the post you are posting on the Facebook, or it may be just images, the images which you have posted on the Facebook or on different places, right? Do you know the way, the kind of post you posted on the Facebook, the kind of photos you posted on the Facebook or another other social medias, people are analyzing them through the data science, and they also have reached to the conclusion that some of the required things, right? They might be giving you advertisement according to the your interest, right, which can really make you click on those advertisement. That is how they are getting more money. Once they get the data, then the second step is basically to convert it into a human readable format. Sometimes the data is already in easy readable format, which could be understood by the human beings, but many time it is not into that format, and in many of the case studies it is required that you convert it into the human readable format. In some cases it might not be needed, but in many of the cases it is also needed that you convert that data which could be understood by human beings easily. After that, you need to do visualization of that particular data. When we say visualization, it is more about that you need to analyze that data properly, and there are many of the reasons why you have to do this analysis even before trying to apply some algorithm which can do the correct prediction for you, right? So your data might be dirty, right? Dirty data, or we can say noisy data, and there might be many reasons behind this, why the data become dirty or noisy, right? Let's say you are collecting some temperature data from some sensors. It might happen that sensor start behaving in in a possible way which might not be giving the correct reading. Like let's say it used to give the temperature in the range of 30 to 100, but someday it is giving suddenly 800 degrees Celsius temperature, right? And definitely something wrong happened with that temperature sensor. Or maybe some problem might happen with the network also, right? Network could be noisy as well, so you might be sending the data which has the value like 2012, but it reads some other values, right? Definitely we might not be using a proper channel which keep checking that the data is coming in the correct form or not, right? Because sometime it is needed that we need to send the data as quickly as possible, rather than making sure that every data is coming in a proper form and all. And once we are sure about the data is in a data is cleaned properly and it's in a particular form, then we uses some statistics method or some algorithms, and we apply these algorithms which could be used to do the predictions, right? Or to do, or to produce the results. Like for example, here you can see like one of the applications, here we are talking about the Ola Uber application, right? So that do the price prediction. You guys can see, if you have used the Ola or Uber, then you might be aware that the prices are changing every moment, right? It's not a fixed prices which you are supposed to pay there, right? Depending on lots of factor, the time, at what time you are booking the cab, and how much availability of cab is there. On the basis of all these things, it is decided that what should be the price. So computer is deciding that price. Nowadays, even online customer supports or chatbots are there, like WeChat, right? So we might be chatting on WhatsApp and all those things. So a lot of websites are providing where computer chat itself to the customer and try to understand their problem automatically and then give the solution to them. So maybe if you guys go that much advanced during this workshop, we can see also how you can make one chatbot also. A simple chatbot we will try to make during one of these workshop. Okay, so what are the skills really a data scientist need to have? So we say they need to have the hacking skills. So what do you mean by hacking skills? Is the programming skills. That doesn't mean the hacker skills like cybersecurity or something like that. It means the programming skills, right? So a person must to have the programming skills. So normally what we can see, there are lots of software engineer which are not data scientists, but they are a good programmer. So that is this particular Venn diagram is showing that thing, that set where we have the programmers. And there are few people who work with the mathematics or statistics, so they have a good knowledge of maths or statistics. Similarly, we have some people who have expertise in a particular field, right? So let's say if you are applying a data science, or if you have a problem statement which is coming from the biology point of view, or if it is coming from the astronomy, right? It could be from any field. So to whichever field that particular problem statement belongs, so we say the substantive expertise, right? So from that particular subject, we are looking for the expert. So when we merge the hacking skills and math skills together, then there is a machine learning, right? So basically, using the math and statistics, we are bringing the formulas or the methodologies which can solve the problems. And by programming them on the computer, we are basically solving the problem. So we call this thing as a machine learning, right? And what is the traditional research till now? If you see, not till now, like a decade ago, around 10 years ago, what people used to do, if a person is doing research in biology, he might need some mathematics or statistic background to do the proper research, and to show the how much confident that particular person is about his research and all. And that person need to be expert in his or her field as well. So these two knowledge were required together. And this is a danger zone. Why do we call when a programmer, when a person is a programmer and has a good knowledge of a particular subject, why we are calling that zone as a danger zone? The reason is that that person would be trying to make a big try to give the solution on the basis of just simple plain rules actually, right? He might not be analyzing the huge amount of data. If he doesn't have the proper skills of math and statistic, that person might not be analyzing huge amount of data and then reach to the final conclusion, right? He, whatever he understand, he will try to code that thing in a simple if else loop. And when he do, there might be millions of rules which he has to make, which is very difficult thing, which is more like an impossible kind of thing, right? And if somebody gets the knowledge of all these three things, then we call it as a data science, right? He has the subject, he has the expertise in a particular subject, he is very good foundation of math and statistics, and he is a very good programmer. Then when all three of these things merge together, then we call the data scientist, right? So the question might be arise then any one of you that it's like data scientists are not subject expert, right? Always, like sometime I have to work in the field where the data is coming from the insurance or banking field. Sometime I have to work in the field where the data is coming from the biology field, right? So data is coming from a different field. So do I have the expertise in that? No, not at all. Then how do we work? So mostly it is like a team effort. So in our team, we need to have the expert. And many time what happens, it's our client who are providing a person from their team who is the expert in that particular subject, right? So we say we more need to focus on into these two skills, which we say machine learning, but we need a person into our team who can explain us data properly that is coming from that particular field, so that once we understand the data, then we can really apply our hacking skills and math skills over that. Okay, so I hope so. Till here, this is clear to all of you guys. And whenever any questions you have in your mind, you guys can just write your query at that moment itself. I will try to take the queries while on going. Okay, now there has been, there has been a big question or in the industry, right? Or a lot of people, especially who are freshers or who are new to them, these names they are hearing a lot: deep learning, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and data science. So what is the difference between them? So let me tell you that initially when these things started, then it happens with the name of artificial intelligence. It happens long back ago, actually, around, even around in 1950s, the artificial intelligence term was coined already. So but during those time we didn't have the proper systems. What kind of intelligence, what kind of algorithms we were having is, it was more like a different kind of algorithm. We were trying to giving the intelligence to the machines, but the way we used to call them more like an expert system, right, where a particular expert from a particular field will come and sit, and he will try to help the programmer to make the false kind of rules, right? And after that there are lots of advancement also happen in between. But pretty soon what start happening is that we start getting the data, right? And machine learning algorithms came into the picture, which start learning from the data, right? Huge amount of data if is being provided to these kind of algorithm, then they can learn on their own, they can find out the pattern on their own, they can look what happened in the past according to the data, and then they can try to find out the patterns out of that. Then comes the deep learning. Deep learning is a kind of machine learning algorithm only. Within the machine learning there are multiples algorithms are there, right? So some of these name you might have heard, like decision tree, naive bayes method, random forest, support vector machine, and so on, right? So similarly, one of the technique under machine learning comes is the neural network. So neural network as start getting advanced, then it is being called as a deep learning. So there is a particular reason we called these methods as a deep learning. These are just the neural network only, but we are calling them as deep learning, right? So in the later on workshop, when we work with the deep learning, then we will discuss also that why we are calling them as a deep learning actually, right? So till here, so machine learning algorithms could be like that, where they many time they need the data, or many times they might not need the data as well. There are few algorithms which can work even without the data, right? So like if you talk about the that also come under this only, artificial intelligence, that is a reinforcement learning algorithm which can learn on its own. You do not need to provide the data to it. All you need to provide is the rules. Let's say if you want to make your system to learn how to play the game, you doesn't need to provide the past games data. Only thing you need to provide is the rules of the game. Then the computer will play against itself, and at the end of playing, like, millions number of time, it will reach to some great strategies using which it can even beat the best human beings in the world. Okay, now the data science. So how the data science is different from this? So data science is more like a bigger term as well. So data science includes these topics as well, which we say AI, machine learning, or deep learning. But when we talk about normally machine learning or deep learning or AI, we think the data is ready already. The data which we are providing to these algorithm is ready. So data science is about making your data ready also. It's not only about running the algorithm, right? It is talking about the pre-processing of data also. So we pre-process the data, we analyze the data first, and after that we apply these techniques, right? These are our AI, ML, or deep learning technique, right? So that is why we say data science is a bigger term actually somewhere. But mostly data science term, again, as I said, that data science cannot be said without having the data. And there are few algorithms in our artificial intelligence which can work without data as well, right? So that is why we are not putting this AI completely under this data science set, right? So that is why there is some intersection we are showing here, because there are few algorithms which might not require any data at all, and there are algorithms which require data. Most of them require definitely. So that is what data science. So data science is a bigger term, right? So it talks about first collecting the data, then about making your data ready by pre-processing data and analyzing that data properly, and after that you apply your artificial intelligence technique over that data, and finally you reach to the result, or you produce some awesome technologies, like we have recommendation systems or some kind of robots and so on. Let's talk about the data science market. How much it is being used in the market, or how much demand do we have in the market? So if we talk about in terms of money, so this is currently it is 2020, and there is around, we are, this is again little old. So till here we can say till 2019 it is clear that it was around 6.2 billion US dollar amount that has been put into this market, right? But in the 2020, this is the expectation, around by the end it would be around 7.5 billion. Then in 21 it will reach to 9.1 billion, and by 22 it will be around 10.95 billion US dollar, right? And if we talk about the average salary, so this is currently has reduced little bit in the market actually nowadays. This is why, so because of this COVID and all. But if we talk about normally even nowadays, what is the average salary? If we talk about the data scientist is around 8 lakh 12,000. If we talk about the same thing in US, average salary is around 96,000. So you can think it is around 70 lakh rupees per annum. Similarly, if we talk about in UK, it is around 40,000 pound, which is a euro, which is equivalent to your this around 36 lakh to 36 lakh around it would be, right? So this way there are other jobs are also there which are also data dependent job, right? So the things which you will be learning in the data science, you can become data analyst, you can be data engineer, you can become business intelligent developer, or many places we called ML engineer as well, or marketing analyst as well. If we talk about the top 20 emerging jobs, so this is a recent chart that has been taken from the LinkedIn, and you guys can see machine learning engineer is around 9.8x, right? So these are the top jobs you guys can see. So top 20 emerging jobs, machine learning is at the top, then data scientist and so on, right? So you guys can see ML data scientist here we have, and after that here we have the big data developer also, which is also pretty much related, just they have to learn few more techniques to apply the data science on the huge amount of data. Okay, so what is the data science learning path? How you have to go through so that you can become a good data scientist, or what are the tools you should learn? Initially, you must be good with the programming language like Python, and you must also know how to handle the data, right? Using the SQL and all. After that, then we will start again with the pre-processing of data. So for pre-processing there are few libraries like pandas, numpy, and sklearn also is being used to pre-process your data. Pre-process again means cleaning your data, or bringing your data in a better form so that you can apply your machine learning algorithm over it. And then we have the libraries of the machine learning. So like we have the sklearn library, or if we talk about the little advanced, which we call as a deep learning also, or ML advanced, so it would be like keras or tensorflow or pytorch and so on. And once you learn till here, right, many places you need to work with huge amount of data. And when you're working with huge amount of data, then running the code on your system might take years as well, right? So you need some better systems. So where actually it's not like only one system, but it's like multiple system your code will execute in parallel, or in a distributed manner your code would be executed. So there you need to learn some big data technologies like Hadoop system. Like if you want to run the Python code onto the Hadoop system using Spark, you have to learn the PySpark. So these are making your code really run fast, in a faster manner, and that too in a parallel way. Okay, so let's talk about the workflow of data science. So first of all, as we said already, that first of all, you need to collect the data, right? If you don't have the data, you can't reach to any conclusion, right? You need to have the past data, using which only it can learn the things, right? Because the thing data science do is learning the past, learning from the past pattern. So data collection is the first one of the important thing. So many time your client will provide you data, right? If let's say if it is a banking company or insurance company, they will provide you data as well, right? Their past data they might provide you. Or sometime you need to create the data for your client as well, means the application which they are asking you to do, they might not give you the data, but you have to collect yourself data. Like one of the project I worked on was generating the minutes of meeting automatically, right? A system should listen the meeting going on and generate the minutes of meeting from that particular meeting. So in that case, I did, the data was not available openly, or they didn't provide any data from their company. So what we did, actually we had our some of our own meetings, or we tried to take some, some videos from the YouTube or different places, or even from the movies where they have shown the things where kind of meetings happen. So we created our own data. So data collection is one of the important step. And many time it might not take even a single minute, because your client is providing you a proper first class proper structured data. Or many time it might take around 90% time of your whole data science workflow, right? So it is very much variable depending on what kind of project you are working. And always, before going further, you need to check whether your data is in correct form or not, right? Because data might have few nuances into it, right? There might be few wrong data point might be there in into your data, and we are going to train our system onto that data. And if we make mistake, if we train our data using these wrong data points, then definitely it will run something wrong, right? It will learn something wrong. So it is equivalent that if your teacher give you a right example, then you will learn the right thing. If we give you a wrong example, then you will learn the wrong thing. How you will learn the right thing? Until we do not give you the right example. So data pre-processing is that case where it is ensuring that the example which we are going to provide to our machine learning algorithms are the right examples. And after that we have to choose a model. So choose a model means choose a machine learning algorithm. We have lots of machine algorithm that has been provided to us, and we need to choose some of them, right? Maybe there are like 50s of algorithms available to you, and out of those 50s, if you understand your data properly while doing the data pre-processing, you analyze your data properly, then rather than trying all the 50 algorithms onto your data, you might reach to conclusion, okay, I should try only these three algorithms onto my data. And after applying out of those three algorithms, you might need to choose only one of the algorithm, right? So this is, you choose your data, choose your algorithm or model, and after that, by taking this data which you have processed, then you apply your this algorithm which you have chosen, and then your algorithm is being trained, right? So it is equivalent to I don't know how many of you, I think nearly all of you might be aware that a lot of work is going on in self driving car, right? Where no driver is needed. Car have a driver, as a computer is working as a driver for a car, right? So for that, what is the data? Actually, data is coming like in the form of video. The data is being provided to it, and then some algorithm is being chosen so that it can make the decisions, right? So what kind of decision it is making? It is making the decisions like whether to take left or right, or accelerate the car or brake the car. All these decisions need to be made. So it is being trained. It is initially in the training system, right, where it makes lots of mistake, and then we evaluate it. Every time the model is being trained, we evaluate it. The kind of, so for evaluation, we basically have some more data. So like here we had some huge amount of data. Out of that, we take, let's say, 80% data to train our model, and 20% data we save, right? So 20% data we save so that we can conduct the test of that algorithm or model. So it is equivalent to this, that suppose I have a book. In that particular book, I have 100 questions, and now I am going to train you first. So rather than showing you all the 100 questions, I will show you 80 questions out of this, right, and their solutions. 80 questions I will show you with their solutions so that you can learn. And once you learn, then the rest 20 questions which I have kept with me, whose solution I have not shown to you, I will conduct your test over it, and then evaluate that how good you have learned over it, right? So that is how, that is the same thing we are doing with our models, that is evaluating. And when we evaluate, we might find that still there is some mistake into our model. So we might need to tune some parameters. So these are some of the these are the parameters which are belonging to our model, right? Some x value, some y value, which we will see as we go deeper into the algorithms. So on the basis of this evaluation, sometime we might need to think that we need to tune these parameters. And once it is done, then we start making the prediction in the real world, right? So, or we basically deploy our model. And there is another thing about it is that this, there is a cycle, there is a whole cycle, means from the data pre-processing I can go back again to data collection, right? Because when I pre-process the data, I reach to the conclusion that data is not cleaned properly, right? Or after training my data, again I might need to pre-process my data more, or again maybe might need to collect my data. So from every step there might be chances that I might retrack, right, my earlier steps and need to make some changes into my earlier steps. So it is a cycle, right? It's a iterative process. It's not just a one go process. It's a iterative process which happens over a period of time. Okay, let me. Now we are going to take one case study. So first of all, I am thinking that all of you guys have knowledge of working knowledge of Python. So we are going to work with the Python, right? And maybe little bit you might have heard about some of the algorithms. If you have heard it, that's great. If not, not a problem. We are not going to talk about the algorithm today. We are going to talk about its implementation. We will implement a algorithm here, right? And then after implementing this algorithm, we will talk about further about it. And before we go and implement this thing, let me know if you guys have any query till now. Okay, we have one question that has been said by Ankit. We can use Excel for data analysis or representation. Then why we use Matplot module or Python programming? Okay, great, good question. So not only Excel, we have lots of other tools as well in the market using which we can analyze the data, right? So the thing is that, one thing is that when we have the programming, we have the more options with us, right? And another thing is that if we talk about really Matplotlib, if you are going to really compare with the Matplotlib, the number of operations or the number of plotting and kind of things you can do with the Matplot is far, far more compared to Excel actually. If we are talking about the visualization just, right? And analysis point of view, if we talk about, then again, it's fine. Excel, it's okay. If you have a small amount of data, it's great. You can work and you can work with the Excel easily. But as the size of the data start increasing, right, then it's become difficult to work with the Excel. Then you need some technologies using which you can analyze your huge amount of data. And simple Python, definitely Python will help you till one particular point of view. Again, if we talk about the RAM memory, right, so whenever we execute our any code or any application is running, it is taking the RAM, right, that is your main memory in which the whole operations are being executed, whether it's a Excel operation or it's your Python operation or any other programming language or any application, right? So one of the problem with the Excel is that Excel itself take lots of space in the memory, right? While Python does not take much space in the memory. So it is also giving us this benefit. So it means you can work with a huge amount of data just with simple Python. I'm not talking about any big data technology yet. I'm just talking about simple Python programming. So using Python programming itself, you have access to bigger data compared to the Excel, and it can produce the result faster compared to it in that case. Okay. Yes, and still in market, Excel is also being used. I'm not saying that Excel has been removed completely for data analysis staff. It is also being used at many places. Even in data analytics, if you are talking about data analytics, then advanced Excel is supposed to be learned by the person, right? And like here in the data pre-processing or analyzing data, you can do also it in case first there Excel, and then bring your data here with the within the Python, and then work further there. Okay, any other question queries do you guys have till now, so that we can take, so till now we have just discussed very general things, so we can discuss even more if anyone has any question till now before we start seeing some of simple case study. Okay, none of you. Great. So so we are going to see this particular case study. This case study have the data set related to hurricanes and typhoons that came in between of 1851 and 2014. So there are different kinds of hurricanes or typhoons. So we need to classify them, that which kind of hurricanes or typhoons on the basis of particular data set, on the basis of like what is the speed it has, what is the pressure it has, and such kind of thing. On such kind of thing, we need to classify that a particular data point is going to be which kind of class it would be, right, whether it's a hurricanes or typhoons. So we will look into this data. If you guys are going to work with me while showing this case study, so you guys can use also the Anaconda. I hope so you guys might have installed already Anaconda, as it has been shared if you want to work while I'm showing you here. Or if you don't have Anaconda with you currently, or using it on your mobile phone, then you can just focus in the lecture. So let me share this particular link, so all of you guys can download this data set which I am going to use through this link which I have shared you. So this is my drive link for this particular file which we are going to use. Okay, so let's start it. So we are going to use Jupyter Notebook, which comes automatically with the Anaconda. If you have installed the Anaconda, then if you write Jupyter Notebook, then you can open it, right? So it will open this kind of interface in your system, right? So it will be showing some folder names in your system, some of the notebook if you have created few earlier. And here you guys can click on new button and then click on Python 3 notebook here, so that now we are ready to write the code. So we can use different IDE, but for the initial point of view, we always prefer that you start working with the notebook. There is many reasons behind using this particular notebook. Even when you are doing the experiments initially, it's good if you work with the notebook. Later on, you can shift to some other IDEs. There are many reasons behind it, that pretty easily you can divide your notebook into different cells, into different piece of code, first thing, right? And there are few more things which you'll be seeing pretty soon. So we are going to work with the this data set, which is available here, right? So how we are going to do it? First of all, we need to work with the pandas library. So we need to import the pandas. So how do we import any library in Python? We write import pandas as pd, right? So this is a short name I'm giving to pandas. So I press here shift enter. So it is executing this particular command, right? So I write import pandas as pd, and as I press shift enter, it executed this command, and here this number is showing that this command has been executed. So we have imported this library. So this library we are going to use to read our data set from a file, the file which I have shared to you guys as well. So here I'm going to store my data set into the variable which we are calling as a df, or in the short form of data frame. So this is a CSV file. So we need to write pd.read underscore CSV, and then here in this comment I need to give the address of that file actually. So this is the file which I am having. So I am just looking into its address here. So here I can, this is the place I have stored it. So I am just copying this location of this file and directly pasting here. And within this, it is specific, right? Now, as I press tab, automatically you will see it will change these tabs and autocomplete this file name, right? So now file name is this, right? So at this particular location with this file name, it is stored. I am reading this data into the df data frame. So we read it into this particular data frame df. Now we can see what are the top 5 rows. Even we can open this file once here. This is a CSV file. We can open it here. So it is showing this is some ID, then name column, then date column, and so on. Similarly, here we can see the top 5 rows. If I just write shift enter, it will show like more number of rows. It is showing 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then in between rows it is not showing. Then few end rows it is showing, right? We can see also some particular rows, or if I want to see just top 5 rows, I can write df.had, and here I will be able to see the top 5 rows of this data set. So automatically you can see it has recognized first row as the column name. So ID is the column name, then date, then time, event, status, latitude, longitude, and so on, right? And so this is our data set. So you guys can see there are lots of columns here we have. So we can see also about this, all these columns. So like it is showing here 22 columns we have. So we can get even more information exactly by using this info function. So when I write df.info, I can know little bit more about my data set. So what kind of thing I can know if there is any null value or not. So first thing it is showing here is that we have 26,137 rows into our data set, right? So 26,000 rows, around that many rows we have. Then it is showing all the column name here, ID, name, date, time, event, and so on till this high wind northwest column. Then it is showing here that whether how many values into this particular column are null or not, right? So null means sometime it might happen some of these values are missing, right? It might happen that date value might be missing here due to any reason. Maybe the person who was filling this sheet or who was creating this data set might forgot to put the date here, because of which it might be null column. So we need to null value here for this column, for this particular row. So if it is happening, so we need to make sure we need to clean such kind of data, right? Whether we remove that row or do some other operation. So we need to see here that all the rows here, all of these column have the exactly that many number of non-null values. So we can see here this is a easygoing things, as all of them is having exactly 26,137 non-null values, right? So no problem. So it is saving some pre-processing time for us. Similarly, here it is showing the what is the data type of this column. So ID is the object type, right? So object, you can think more like a string here currently, right? Even it is it's having a bigger meaning, but let's say keep it simple that we are talking about it's a string, right? It is into the string form. And you can see the date column, time column, these are into the integer form, all of these columns, right? So you can see few columns are in the object form, and rest columns are into the integer form, right? So basically this latitude and longitude together is showing that at which particular place that particular typhoon or hurricane came, right? So and what kind of typhoon or hurricane it is, that is being shown into our status. So status is our output variable, or the one which we want to predict. So it has been given in the past what kind of uh, in the past, uh, at what latitude, at what longitude, when a particular speed was there, when particular pressure was there, what kind of hurricane or typhoon was reported there, right? So that now it can do it automatically. So it will learn now from this data set that what kind of speed, pressure, and so on thing generates the a particular kind of hurricane or typhoon, right? So now even if we have to pre-process the data, it is going to take lots of time, actually saying you truly, which is not possible during this small workshop, because we need to use these latitude longitude properly. But currently what we are going to do, we are going to remove this. We need to cluster them, we need to do lots of step with that. But to keep it simple, we will just remove these latitude longitude or the variables which are object currently, actually, right? id is definitely is not needed, right? id never help us in finding any pattern, right? So it is equivalent to your roll number, right? So different people might have roll number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but their roll number can never decide that what a particular person is going to learn, how much a particular person is going to learn. Other activities might define the learning rate of a person, but their roll number can never define it, because roll number or id is something which is randomly generated or randomly given, right? So we are not needed this id column here. And name column is basically, this is the name of the person who has reported that particular typhoon or hurricane, right? So name column is also never going to decide it that whether a particular typhoon or hurricane, whether a particular event would be a typhoon or hurricane, right? So what we are going to do, we to keep it simple, currently we are going to remove those variables which are object other than the status, because status is our output variable. So let's see the status actually, right? So let's work with the status, and then we will remove some of the variables, right? So this is a status variable. So if I write just df dot status, so within this I am saying within this data frame collect this particular variable name which is status. So there are two ways we can do. One is using this dot format, another is the index format. So using this, we basically can see there are two values only we can see here currently, like ts, ts, lo, lo. So let's see what are all the possible values do we have here. So for that, we can use a unique function. So what does this unique function do? It basically tell us what are the different hurricanes or typhoons we have. So one particular kind of hurricane or typhoon we have is the ts, another is hu, another is td, another is ex. So these are the different kind of typhoons or hurricanes we have, or even we can draw them into some chart as well and look into that. So we can import Seaborn as SNS, and here we can do SNS dot count plot, so that exactly we can see which particular class, in how many data points a particular class is coming, right? And here we can give our df status. So we are passing that particular column to our this count plot. So it is giving us count plot for each of these class. So for TS class is around 10,000. So like out of 26,000 data points, 26,137 data points, we have around 10,000 data points which belong to TS class. Similarly, around 6,500 data points belong to HU class, and so on. So if we see there is a problem with this data set, and what is the problem in this data set is that like ST, SS, PT and STHU class, they seems to be negligible, right? They have like negligible number of classes. So that's a really big issue. We call this as a biased data, right? So biased data, there is a problem of biased data in data science field, which we need to make sure. Why again there is a problem of biased data? It is equivalent to this. Let's say let's say uh, if I give you questions and their solution, let's say I taught you 100 questions, right? And these are, let's say, multiple choice questions, and out of these 100, I am telling you for all the questions what is the reason that the solution is particular this point B, C, D, or whatever, right? But let's say by mistake it happens that out of these 100 questions, 90 questions has their solutions written at point B, right? And only 10 other were there which was having some different points. So what might happen also is that some of clever fellows out of you might think that in the when the exam will come, I will just put B as an answer without even knowing whether B is really the answer for this question or not, right? And chances would be high that I would be correct, right? Same thing it might happen here. If let's say TS is having a more many number of example, most of the time the thing which it has to predict is TS, then it might happen that it does not learn anything from this model and give always the same prediction, that is TS, right? So biasness is one of the very big problem in the data science, and there is a particular way to handle these problem. But currently we will keep it like this. There are few algorithms which can handle the biased data as well, and in few cases we need to take care of it ourselves. Okay, so even we can see exactly these exact number of each of these class by saying within the data frame we have this column status, and we want to do the each of these value counts. So whichever value we have into this, we want to count them. So now you can see the TS class is having around 10,076 data point. TD class is having around 6,965 data points. HU is around 6,765, and so on, right? And you can see definitely HU is the worst case, just a one data point, right? Out of 26,000 data point, there is only a one data point which is having HU. So it is equivalent to this. Let's say if you would be asked about 26, let's say you have to prepare prepare for a paper in which there are going to be 26,000 questions, and you have to study the topic. So it is also given that from the TS topic there would be that many questions, from this TD topic there would be that many questions. So what you might think is I can skip some of these HU topic, SG topics, because there are not going to be much questions from this, right? So this is what we call as a biased data or biased data problem actually. Okay. So now it has happened here, like we have seen this data. We are going to do just a normal processing here. We are not going to do a very hardcore processing, pre-processing, which require itself a huge amount of time. Saying you truly around 60% of the time data scientists give to the pre-processing of data, right? It's a huge amount of time. So let's do one thing now. So we need to tell to our model what we want to predict. So what we want to predict is the status. So we want our system to learn so that it can predict the status value. So we need to segregate our data in such a way so that we can put we can take status away from the rest data. So we are going to do this thing. So within the y, we are reading the status column. Okay, so that y will be having all the status value, and what we are doing is we are going to put within the x everything else other than the status. So we are going to drop the status column from our data frame. So we will drop it status, and because this is a column, whenever we want to drop the column, we need to tell the axis is equal to 1. If it is a row we want to drop, then we say axis is equal to 0. So we want to remove this column. So that is how we do. So if I show you y is just the status now, status column. And if I show you the x, let me write x.info so that you can see all the column names. So you guys can see now there is one less column, right? So 21 columns, while earlier it was 22 column. And here you can see now we don't have the status column, while in the data frame we have the status column as well. So we have segregated our data. So x is the data value on the basis of which we want to do the prediction, right? So x is the data value on the basis of which we want to predict the y. So we segregate it. So what we want to predict is y, and on what basis we want to predict is x basis. So we have segregated it. Okay. So now what we are going to do, as I said, we need to do pre-processing, but to keep the thing simple, what I am going to do as a pre-processing step is removing these variable name, which is having object data type, right? While this is not a good approach, but to keep it simple, as a first case study, we will remove these. Otherwise, we need to do a lot of other stuff as a pre-processing really here, right? So what we are going to do here, again, we are going to drop the columns from x. So we need to write x dot drop, and then we need to give the list of the columns whichever we want to remove. So what are the columns we want to remove? We want to remove the id column, and other column we want to remove is the name column. And what are the another column we date, even date time we can remove, but let's keep it as it is an integer. It is not going to impact, it may impact a lot actually, but let it be there currently. And then we take the event column, and after event we can take the latitude. In reality here latitude and longitude are two of the very important column, right? But we need to pre-process it in a little different way. So we are just keeping it simple. So we will remove this latitude and longitude column as well. And because axis is equal to 1, we want to keep. Okay. And what is the another thing we want to do? We want to remove this column permanently from the x. So we will write here in place is equal to true, right? So earlier what you saw here, when I write the drop column here, then you can see I didn't write the in place is equal to true. Why so? Because after dropping it, I am storing it into the x. I'm not making any changes within the df, but I'm storing it into the x by making the changes whichever I want to, right? So df is as it is still. So x you can see is having 21 columns, but if I show you still df dot info, right? So you guys can see it is still having 22 columns. Okay, so now let me remove these columns here. Now we have removed the permanently all these columns. So you guys can see now we are left with the 16 columns, and these are integers, right? So now we have the x and y. So we have the column which we want to predict in the form of y, and we have the rest data in the form of x, using which we want to make the prediction. Okay. Okay, and let me know till here things are clear to all of you guys. If you have any queries, let me know before we go ahead. Or if the things are clear till here, you guys can type as well so that we can go ahead. Okay, so Ankit is saying I have Visual Studio Code, sir. Yeah, you can work with any IDE. That is not a problem. Okay, so let's go ahead. Okay, so now once we do this thing, now what we are going to do? Yes, Kumud is raising his hand. So Kumud, do you have some queries or question? So let me unmute you. If you want to speak something, ask your question, you can type, or you can type as well as you can ask, or it's clear. Okay, you are raising the hand for being clear as well. Okay, great. Okay, so for clear, you guys can raise the hand. Great. Okay. So now let's go ahead. Now, as I told you guys initially, that let's say this is the whole data set, right? So this is equivalent that these are the questions I am having, and these questions is having the solution in the form of y, right? So now what we are going to do, as I told you, that I have this book in which I am having 100 questions, and what I will do, I will teach you 80 questions out of these 100 questions, right? So we are going to divide this 80-20 or 70-30, right? So for dividing this thing, so like for training, how many data set I should use, and for testing, how much data I should use, we need to use a library which will, so that is within sklearn.model selection, we have a function which we call as a train test split. Here I didn't write the import. Okay, so we have imported this particular function which is train test split. Now what we are going to do, I am saying, so this function will give me values in the form of train x, basically questions on which I will train you, that is within train x, right? Then test x, questions which on which I will conduct your test. Then I am having here train y, the solution for this train x question, right? And then test y, the solution for the test x question, right? And then within this function, we will provide them. So from which data we are doing this train test split is x and y. X is the questions, y are the solutions, we can say. And we can say test size here. So how much data point I want into testing. So let's say 30% question I want to be used for the testing purpose. So I will give here 0.3, right? So out of 1, I need to tell the fraction. So now it returns us this data. So if I show you train x dot head, then you guys can see these are all the x things, right? So 16 columns would be here. Even we can look here the shape exactly, that how many rows do we have in the train questions. So we have around 18,295 questions, right? And because we have 16 columns, so here it is showing it as a 16. Similarly, we can look to make sure that train y have really solution for these train x questions. So we need to make sure that the number of rows here and here are same exactly, right? Which is the case here. Similarly, we can see how much data points are there within our test x, that is around 7,842. Similarly, test y should have exactly the same as we have on the test x, and we can say it is. So it means we have divided our data set properly into the train and testing set. Okay, now we are going to use one algorithm. So you guys might be aware about this algorithm or not. Not a problem. If you have, it's great. If not, not a problem. Just you can think just this is one algorithm and directly we can work over it currently, right? So how do we do it? So we need to tell within which module this particular algorithm is available. So we are going to use decision tree. So we say from sklearn.tree, we are going to import the decision tree classifier. And then we create its model, right? So basically this is a class we have imported. Now we are going to create its object. So sometime we need to pass some parameters. So we are not passing any parameter currently, keeping it simple. DTC model we are calling it, that is our decision tree classifier. And now we need to train this model, right? So we have chosen the decision tree classifier model, and we are going to train this model. Okay, so some people are asking how to install the with the Visual Studio these library with different IDs. There are different ways, so we can talk about later, right? So you can currently focus here. And another thing is that if you don't later on also, if you want to work, I will share this notebook with each one of you, and you guys can work with the Google collaborative notebook as well, right? So that is a freely available. Each one of you can use it on online completely. I will be telling you at the end of this workshop. Just remind me in the case I forget, that how you can execute your code online freely. Okay, so DTC model dot fit. Now whenever we want to train our this model, right? So we use the fit function. Fit function, basically we are saying now train fit itself or find the parameter or find the patterns of out of the data. Now we are giving is these are the questions like train x, and what are their predicted value for them is the train y, so that it can find out the relationship between the train x and the train y, right? So DTC model is going to run what is the relationship between them, so that once it learns the relationship between them, later on it will be using train x directly and can predict the value what would be the train y, right? So now we train this model, right? After training this model, it has basically used some parameter is which it is telling here. We won't go here currently because when we study decision tree classifier we can discuss about it, but currently just see it more like a model, right? To keep it simple, we are just using this particular model. So we have created its object, we have trained our data set onto this, we have trained our model onto this data set train x train y, right? Now we want to see how good it can work with this test data set, right? So now I will pass the test x to this train model, and I will see what result it gives, and then I will match it with the test y. Okay, so let's see this thing. So let's do this thing, DTC model dot predict, and on which data set we want to predict it. We want to predict it onto the test x, right? And it will give its own output, predicted output. So what is the classes according to it? So here it give its result. So if I show predicted OP, then you can see this is a different results it is giving. And similarly we can see test y, which is this, right? So like first point predicted by our system is TS, and the correct result is also TS. Second point HU here predicted as HU. Next is TS and predicted as TS as well, right? We can exactly find out how accurately it has predicted by one function, which is accuracy score, which is again available in the sklearn library. And from sklearn.matrix we are going to import accuracy score, right? Once we import it, and then I can pass both of these to it, right? Predicted output as well as test y, right? And it is giving out of 1 it is 0.96. So if we talk about the percentage, so it is 96.65 percentage. So we can get it. Like if we talk about the in the terms of percentage, it is 96.6 accuracy it is giving for this particular result, right? So we can see really it did really good onto the test data as well, right? And sometime you might be interested also looking that for exactly which particular class how many data set point it has predicted correctly. So for that we need to import one more library, which is from sklearn dot matrix import, and then we can do here is the confusion matrix, and then within this confusion matrix we can pass it, and it is giving that for one particular, so these are giving the diagonal values are giving how many correctly classified, right? While the non-diagonal values are giving the wrongly classified values, right? So we can see for a particular class one. So how does we know which class is it? So we can even use which where we use the unique function, that is df.status.unique. Yes, so we can even pass this so that exactly in the same order we can get the values, right? So like these are the unique values we have. So by default it takes them on the basis of their sorted order, but if we want them into this particular order we can pass it here as well, right? So now it is giving us, so this is 3002 is correctly classified for which class? TS class. 1977 classified for correctly classified for which class? HU class, right? 2013 correctly classified for which class? TD class. So this way it is giving us for which particular class which how many data points has been correctly classified. Okay, so this way we can work with this, right? Similarly we can even apply some more different models. The only thing is that we just need to make one small changes here, that is just right here which particular classifier we want to import. Okay, so if you have queries you can ask. So Ashutosh has raised the hand. Yes, Ashutosh, if you have any question or anyone has any question, kindly let me know. Okay, Ankit is asking, can we visualize the data? We can visualize the data also. Which you want to visualize here? Which one? Which thing? Do you want to? Amita's ma'am saying very nice session, sir. Thank you, ma'am. So Ankit, if you can tell me which particular data you want to visualize, then and which form you want, we can see those things then accordingly, right? Max wind. So what you like, what way you want to visualize this max wind? There are a lot of different things we can do with the max wind. So what do you want to see with the max wind exactly? Like we can do normal scatter plot, right? Like max, like we can do exactly what are the different points where it is lying actually, like max wind as you are saying. So if you want to do, we can do it on the scatter plot, or there are even univariate plots are also there, but we will keep it multivariate currently here. So let me show you again df.info, right? So let's say you want to look for the different values of maximum wind, right? What are the different values do we have in maximum wind? So yeah, scatter plot we will do here, scatter plot for sure. So let's import mat plot lib.pyplot as plt and plt dot scatter. So what we are going to do in this scatter plot is we are keeping the same thing at both the axes, right? So it would be our diagonal value, it would be showing. Right, so it is showing, it will show diagonal value. Why? So because at both the axes I have kept the maximum wind, right? So it is basically showing how the what kind of different data points, how the range is changing for the wind speed, right? So let me just select the pen. Where is 1 second, draw. So you can see it is ranging from this actually, right? So it is ranging from here to here, and you guys can see also that if you have to see these, in between these two there is a gap, right? So like till 160 there are some point around, and then after 160 there is a point around at 178. So there is a gap also in between. So it might be possible also that these two values might be outlier, right? These two values might be outlier as well, right? So we are not pre-processing, as I said initially, data currently, but yes, when we see it, we can see these may be or may not be. We have to look exactly using the standard deviation, we can reach to the conclusion whether it's a outlier or not. Okay. We can even animate the data as well. Lot of other things we can do with this data for sure, but currently we are not doing those things. So when we will study about the pre-processing and all, we will be having one session for the plotting in the coming sessions workshop. Then we can do play around all these things, right? Currently it just give you the glimpse that how you can work with what kind of problem statement do we have here. Okay, we can animate them, we can do the 3D plotting also, right? So a lot of things we can do here. Okay, so okay, so you are saying okay sir, thanks, I actually see one project that double pendulum. I think the project which you have shown of the pendulum is basically the reinforcement learning project, chances are high, right? And where we work with the open AI gym library, and that gives lots of environment. We basically say it's environment. Whenever we work with the reinforcement learning problems, we basically say that it provides the environment. So within the environment, lots of environment which are being provided by the AI gym, they give their animations, right? So that's the thing. Okay, yeah, so let me know if any one of you have any particular problem here related to this code or anything here before we go ahead. Okay, so there might be, so some of you might be completely new, some of you might have already mastered these things. It might happen. So I was teaching, like training you guys, showing you very basic example. We didn't do much here in this example. It was just to give you the glimpse that what kind of work you might have to do in the data science, right? So depending on the feedback, okay. So Ankit is saying, can all data drawn into pie chart? All data into the same pie chart cannot draw. So see, why do you make the pie charts? Depend why do you make the pie charts actually, right? So we make the pie charts to basically show the how much percentage of something is there belonging to a particular class, right? So if you want to say like here I draw the count plot for this particular column status, in place of count plot, I can do the pie chart also. In that case, it will show the percentage, that how much percentage of TS is basically how many data points of status are belonging to TS, not exactly into the form of 10,000, but into the form of the percentage, right? So like if 26,000 are there, so 10,000 divided by 26,000. So in this way, for each column, you need to make single pie chart. You can't draw multiple number of pie. You can't draw one pie chart for the whole data set, right? For this, all the columns, you can't make one pie chart, right? For one column, you can make one pie chart, right? And within this pie chart, then it will show you the distribution, right? So how distribution in this in the count, actually percentage form. So like this count plot showing exactly the number of points, while the pie chart will show the percentage of these points, their area, right? Okay, so there are like, as you are saying, we can see these pie charts stuff or any other thing you want to, for sure, like before finishing it, we can do it. Let's see few more things first, and then we will do few extra thing, right? So that we can be on the time as well. Okay. So currently let's do one or two, let's see few more slides, and then I will be back to the queries. Then you just remind me, and then we can do take this particular question. Okay, so we just now see this particular case study. Okay, so now there are, so what are the different topics we are planning to cover depending on what would be your feedback, right? So we are taking a feedback here, in which you can let us know that what do you think, that where you want to start it, right? So few of the things we have thought is like pre-processing data using sklearn. We will see some case studies. First of all, we'll tell you a lot of different functions of pre-processing, what are the different ways you can do the pre-processing, and then we will see some case studies, right? And within this also, we may talk about the some data visualization stuff as well. After that, we will go little deeper. So like deep learning is becoming a trending technology, right? So little difficult it is, but it could be understood as well. So we will try to make you understand first few simple examples of deep learning, and then we will make you create one model using the TensorFlow. So TensorFlow is the framework using which you can implement the deep learning models, right? It is being provided by the Google, right? It's a framework which has been developed by the Google. Similarly, the PyTorch is the another framework which is developed by the Facebook. After that, we are planning one of the workshop which we are planning is text classification using BERT. So BERT is one of the classification technique, actually model is there, using which is again recent advancement for the natural language processing. So we can use some BERT technologies, BERT model, and try to classify our model. And another is we will try to predict the future connections on Facebook. So we will download some data set related to Facebook, in which it will give us what are our network, what are our friends network, and so on, and on the basis of which we will do the prediction, that we will predict who could be our next friend. Then after that, we will work with the air quality index prediction. So nowadays, like during the December, you might be knowing, like because of uh, because of high pollution in Delhi, the air quality index, uh, really become, the condition become really worse, right? So even the state Delhi was closed for few days, right? They started doing these things, right? Odd even things and so on. Okay, so okay, so let me tell you that if you guys attend these workshop properly, right, and you are really if you are showing that you are really learning the things properly, then we are planning to take two. We may take like one or two candidates out of you, depending on your efforts during these workshop series, and we will train you properly without any cost for being a data scientist. And what are the really the subjects which you have to learn to become a data scientist, right? Expert data scientist actually. So it is starting, first of all, you need to master the Python properly. Then one of the important thing is that you need to understand the statistics, because if you really want to understand the algorithms which works within the data science, like today we work with the decision tree. So if you really want to know exactly the background mathematics behind it, then you need to know the statistics properly for it, right? So this is one of the important subject. And then data pre-processing and visualization, as you know already, this is one of the very important part. Then you will start learning the machine learning, right? So you will really now learn the techniques like different machine learning model and all, using Python as well as using R. Then we provide advanced machine learning models. So many places you might be seeing, even in the universities or many different places, they people study the normal topics, right? But there are many advanced techniques are there within the machine learning which requires very good knowledge of statistics, again probability distribution and statistics kind of stuff, which we will be training you here as well. And then how to work with the deep learning model using Google framework TensorFlow as well as the PyTorch. Then computer vision. So when if you want to work with the images or the videos and you want to give the intelligence to your machines, then you need to learn this computer vision, like as we already discussed about one case study, like self-driving car. There it is using computer vision, right? So it is using different techniques. It's not just using one technique, but one of the things which it has to use is the computer vision. And then the natural language processing to work with the data that is a textual form data, like Siri, Google Assistant, they work with the natural language processing system. Then reinforcement learning, this is one of the trending technology. This is the latest, this is very few people in the current industry know about it. Very few people actually. And there is a huge demand for the people who know the reinforcement learning. This is really advanced technology. And in this it is more like giving the way human being learns, the same way machine will learn, that is learning by doing, right? So it is equivalent that first time when you are learning the badminton, you might be making mistake, but as you make more mistake and you play more, then you start learning more. So same is the reinforcement learning techniques are. And after that, how to execute your machine learning algorithms or models onto the PySpark using the big data. So some people are doing drawing here and there. Please do not do it. So yeah, so how you can when you have a huge amount of data, which technology you should use to execute your machine learning technique. It cannot be executed onto your simple system. Then you need to work with the big data, and one of the way you can execute it using the PySpark. And after that we'll be talking about how to make the models which can create itself some more machine learning models, right? And at the end we will talk about the ML model deployment, how you can, once you create the machine learning model, how you can deploy them into the real world so that it could be used, right? Might be like how to deploy it as a recommendation system onto the shopping cart, or how to deploy it like your Google Assistant or these kind of things. Okay. So, and while working, while learning, so we will be training you onto these, right, free of charge, the people who would be selected through these workshop series. And other than that, not only you would be trained onto these technologies, but you will get opportunities to work with the experts, right? With the experts, data science experts, as well as you will be working on the real projects. You would be the part of the data science project team which we have. So we work with the lots of clients. We have lots of clients which have always requirement, right? Which have lots of requirement always. So you will get this opportunity, right, to work with our clients. And it is saying you truly, it is like life changing experience people who have gone through these internship, and many of them automatically are being recruited by the client. So it is more like conversion. It's not like just the internship, but it is more like, a path towards a job, a good job, right? So if you do all these topics properly, then a good job is guaranteed, right? So this is what you will receive if you go through these workshop properly. So two of you candidates will be getting this opportunity to work on, to learn all these technologies with us and work on the real life project, real ongoing projects with the data scientist teams. Okay, so now if you guys have queries, let me know before we go ahead. Now let me know if you guys have query. You guys can type the things. Anil says, is there any need to learn about neural networks for data science? Yes, Anil. Anil, there is a huge demand of neural network uh, for a data scientist. Why so? Like earlier people were not working that much, but the thing is that lots of problem solutions are being given in a best way using the neural network. So neural network really made lots of machine learning techniques as obsolete techniques in the current market. If you know the deep learning, it's okay. If you don't know some few techniques, but if you don't know deep learning, it become difficult to survive as a data scientist. So nowadays it is very highly required that you learn the neural network or deep learning. Okay, so Ankit is saying, sir, I learned Python, and what after that for road to data science? Can I learn NumPy Panda? Please explain path. Yes, yes. So here we can, here you guys can see what should be the path actually exactly. So first of all, if you want to pursue your career in data science, so first thing you learn like programming languages like Python with any development ID. Then you learn and understand data with data pre-processing, and as well as actually when we say understand data, then visualization come automatically. Then you have to learn the machine learning, and then there are few more tools which you need to learn, and later on the deep learning. So this is the really roadmap actually. If you are thinking for a roadmap to be a good data scientist, this is a roadmap, complete roadmap. You start learning with Python, then you learn the statistics, then data pre-processing and visualization. And when you, so if I talk about the programming languages or tools here, so let me tell you the tools here for the things. One second here. So this is clear to all of you guys that mastering Python, and this is about the mathematics, right? So this is about the math, right? But when we talk about this thing that is data pre-processing and the visualization, so what are the library you need to learn here is libraries like NumPy, like Pandas, sklearn as well, right? Because sklearn is having lots of great functions which can help you in working with the pre-processing, right? And after that, for visualization, you need to work with the initially with the matplotlib, right? Then you have to work with the even pandas also provide some of their own visualization tool, but matplotlib, seaborn, which you must start with actually. And after that, one important tool, once you learn these things, then plotly is also you should think to learn off, right? But it is not as much required. You should initially focus on matplotlib and seaborn. If you get the time, then go for the plotly. There are some other tools also for visualization. Okay, so let me just put it here for machine learning. Then this is here you will learn the with you can learn with the sklearn, right? So sklearn, there are few techniques are not available still in the sklearn, and there is a statistic libraries there. There is a statistic libraries there. I don't remember its exact name, which provide few of the other models which are not available. There are few recommendation libraries are also, which even using sklearn you can, or and statistic library you can use to make the recommendation, but there are better libraries for making the recommendations as well, right? SciPy is there, but you doesn't need to learn really SciPy, saying you truly. It's okay, you can, if you really want to write your code in a more bare way, then you can learn for SciPy, but it's okay. Initially, you do not need to think for the working with the SciPy, right? Machine learning with R is having its own tool. For this, again, sklearn is fine. And then here it is written already that you need to learn the TensorFlow and PyTorch. So these are the two tools, and definitely while you are learning TensorFlow, you will learn the Keras as well, right? So you will be learning the Keras at the same time, right? And then for computer vision, you will be using the TensorFlow, PyTorch, as well as you will be learning OpenCV and skimage as well. And even there are few more libraries are also there. So Ankit says, are programming language compulsory for data science? It's okay. If you are fine with the Python, you can leave the R as well. But many companies sometimes look specifically to work on the R, but it's not that much required actually. Okay. And now natural language processing, there is a tool like NLTK, right? For reinforcement learning, there are like OpenAI tool is there, and while the has their own tools, and while ML deployment, you need to learn about the some web services like AWS, Google Cloud, using whatever you want to do, and REST API. There are few stuff like this you need to learn. Okay. So Realme 5 Pro says, sir, which Python training institute should I join, or only online courses are sufficient? See, many of the online courses are not providing the real hands-on actually. That's one of the problem. That is why we are also providing, designing our own courses and started our training ourselves, right? And Anil says, what about the database most likely used for Python? Database, actually, it depends that with which kind, from where you are bringing the data, right? So depending on this, it matters, right? So specifically when you will work specifically with the big data, data might be coming from many different sources, and accordingly on the basis of the source it is coming and what is the form of data, you need to use the different tools for that. Okay, there are many different tools are there which are being used at different places. Okay, so let me just clear all these things. So this is once you do all these things, then you become like a, really a experienced data scientist. Nothing more than needed after doing all these things. And many of the places actually the problem is that they mostly teach this machine learning with Python. They teach Python and directly machine learning with Python, right? They do not even take you to the statistic for data science, which is very important thing. Data pre-processing is the part of machine learning many places, but it is not as detailed as it should be actually. Data pre-processing and visualization. Okay, so if you have any other question, let me know. And here we discuss about how you can take your journey, and this is the feedback form. I would request all of you guys to fill. I am sending it to everyone so that we can design our next upcoming workshop according to the current status, right? So let me send to everyone this link. please guys fill this feedback form. Please fill this feedback form, and so that we can know exactly your current status as well as how we can improve the experience of your upcoming workshops, right? And this is about us. So if we talk about our organization, so Trunic is basically a consulting company as well as it is education technology organization as well. So we ourselves have the experts in our teams who work as a data scientist, as well as when we train the people in our team, so you guys will get the opportunity to work on the real projects as well. And this, so we say like if we talk about really about the fourth industrial revolution, it's it's all because of our artificial intelligence, internet of things, big data, blockchain, and so on. So we will keep it simple here. These are some of the data science things you must know, like Python data wrangling. Data wrangling is again it includes the pre-processing and all, machine learning, then deep learning, NLP, reinforcement learning. These things you should do, right? And here you guys can contact us also. You guys can visit our website also on www.trunic.com, and these are the contact numbers. You can contact us as well for further queries or any questions you have. You guys can email to info@trunic.com and give the reference of your university. Okay, great. So now uh, I would request Amita ma'am. So let me unmute the Amita ma'am to say a few things to end this session.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you, ma'am.
Yes. Yeah. Am I audible to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. Um, Thank you, sir, for your useful session. And I would like to talk about you a little bit. Mr. Gaurav Sharma, sir, has more than 9 years of experience working on data science projects. Currently, he's working with data scientists with the TrueNet company, which is situated in Gurgaon, Haryana. He has expertise in deep learning, computer vision, and NLP. Some of the projects he has worked and found interesting are AI bot for recording minutes of meeting. Secondly, stock market predictions using news. Thirdly, group photo based attendance system. Fourthly, recommendation engines. Fifthly, camera navigation for blind people, and so on. While working as a data scientist, Mr. Gaurav Sharma has delivered trainings and given consultancy on data sciences to various organizations like NIIT, Gurgaon, Tech Mahindra, Indigo, IBM, Jet Airways, RBL, LG, etc. With this brief introduction of Mr. Gaurav Sharma sir, I would like to thank him and congratulate him for this valuable knowledge and patience with one and all. I would also like to thank Mr. Anshuman Gupta sir and his Tunic team for cooperation with Venganga College of Engineering. I would now like to announce here that Venganga College of Engineering has taken a new step into a UG program, that is introducing a new UG program, that is Artificial Intelligence and Data Science for 4 years in our Venganga College of Engineering, with the support and coordination of Dr. Bharat Chede sir and Dr. Brahmanand Karanchekar sir, who is the chairman and the founder of the institution. I would like to be more grateful to Mr. Director Dr. Bharat Chede sir for giving us this opportunity to organize this event and taking out time from his busy schedule. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation for Mr. Nitin Chaudhary sir for his entire participation and making this webinar a success. As no program can become successful with a single person, so I extend my big thanks to our Computer Science and Information Technology department for their support. Thank you guys for making this event successful with your contribution. Thank you, sir, and thank you, everyone. Yes, sir. With this, we end this webinar for today.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for your kind words and for your support. And thank you very much, all the students, for listening with so much patience and making this session interactive by asking good questions. So one more question has been asked just now. So before ending this session, let me just tell a little bit as said by one person, how we can use the Google Colab. So if you do not have in your system, uh, then you can use the Google Colab as I told you in starting. So let me tell you how you can use it. So this is a platform provided freely by the Google to execute the Python machine learning code online. So when you write Google Colab here in the Google search, you will get this link colab.research.google.com. You can click onto this. So here it will open now the notebook, the kind of notebook I was working here, the same kind of notebook you can create onto the Google Colab here. Like using this, here I can write some new notebook I want to create. So it will create this new notebook. The only thing you need to make sure that you are logged in with your Google ID, right? So I am already logged in with my Google ID. So that is why I'm able to directly came here in. And now I can write, I can execute the Python code any, right? So like I can write directly print hello, and we can work with any of the libraries here. All most of the mostly all the Python libraries are available here. And if it is not available, you can use just any library you think is not available. You can just use exclamatory sign and write the pip install and that particular library whichever you want to you want to install. So it is showing, like I write here pip install sklearn, it is showing that this library is already installed into Google Colab. So I can use directly this thing, right? So this way also you guys can work directly without installing any software into your system. Okay, so let me say thank you very much everyone, and I really want to say especially uh, thanks to Dr. Bharat sir to provide us this opportunity to deliver this workshop to your students. And I hope we will be having some good sessions or good workshops in the coming time. Thank you very much. We are ending the session now.